Hello. All right, what we're going to do now is the developmental sequence. So this could be used as a warm-up, it could be used as a standalone daily movement practice. You can perform this sequence all the way through, or as part of your daily practice you might just start with the first, say, 2 exercises, just the head nod and the looking left, looking right, and build from there. That's a good place to start. The other thing is, when you're practicing this as a sort of standalone practice, maybe you've got 15 minutes and you perform this full sequence, you try and make it last 15 minutes, but you work on the components that you need to work on. So it could be at first the head nods and the looking over the shoulders, but then you might go through the next few stages pretty quick, but then work the crawling, working that stability through your midsection a little bit longer, and then maybe by the time you get up to the standing and the walk or the marching, you add maybe a sprint at the end of it. All will be revealed, I'll talk you through it as we go, but essentially you can make this a warm-up or a workout or parts of it as a bit of your daily movement practice. Cool. Alrighty, so I'll do a couple of angles for you if you like, or best can move around, it's up to you. But we want to start in the Sphynx position. Now remember, when we come into a Sphynx position, we're extending through the crown of the head from the tailbone. So it's a global extension. This should not hurt. It's very common for this to hurt, especially in this lower back, but it's not normal. And it's because if you lose range through your thoracic spine, or you lose range through your hips, then obviously we, potentially have to sort of do something about that. So remember, this shouldn't cause you pain. All right, so I'm going to plant my hands, really push down, lengthen through the crown of the head. Now, what the head nod is this to this. I'm leading with the eyes. The eyes look down or roll down. The eyes look up. We roll up. All right, now as I'm performing this, I'm not letting the head drop or the shoulders collapse. I'm keeping that tight position. All right. Now I'm getting a nice stretch through my hip flexors. I keep these on now. I'm going to look over the left shoulder. I'm going to look over the right shoulder. Again, not letting the shoulders collapse or the head drop. Now how we can make that, see how the body's snaking around? That's what we want to do. Now how I can make this a little bit more sort of, should we say I work my eyes. So if I lead with the eyes, the head follows. And I look round, eyes, head follows, trunk follows. But then I can make it a little bit more difficult by closing the left eye as I look over the left shoulder and really looking around with that right eye. And then again to the other side, closing the right eye as I look over the right shoulder. All right. After that one, we're going to release a little bit. And this is where we roll. Now I'm going to roll nice and easy with assistance from the arm and leg. So I'm going to take this arm, I'm going to roll onto my back, taking this arm out of the way. First thing again, eyes, head. This hand pushes, this hip reaches. So I then end up controlling onto my back. I'm going to go back to my belly, so it's eyes, head. I'm going to keep this arm out of the way. I'm reaching with this hand this time, pushing with this hip. I come back to the belly. So now I go to the other side and keep this arm out of the way. Eyes, head, push with this hand, reach with this hip. So we're trying to make this nice and smooth. I'm trying not to stop, so I'm keeping the move at the same pace all the way through. You see how I'm doing this. Now this is, I can feel my tummy working. I'm really working my rotatory stability by doing this. I'm doing it nice and slow, it's nice and mindful, so I get to keep control over that roll. I could make this harder by maybe not using an arm, just using the hip, so it's eyes, head, and then we reach. But you know what, for the purposes of, if I'm doing this as a warm-up, I make it as easy as I can. All right, now let's go back to the Sphynx position. So it's here. This is where we do a commando crawl. So this arm is going to sweep across. This elbow is going to pull back a little bit, but I'm keeping the chest up. And I'm going to draw my right knee to my right elbow. So you can see how I'm going to have a long side of the trunk and a short side. And then I come back, I sweep those round, so I'm reaching with my right hand, pulling my left elbow back, and then so my trunk is doing this as well. One side will shorten, one side lengthen. I'm looking forward and trying to keep the chest lifted. So I'm not jutting the chin out, keeping the chest lifted. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Now if you wanted to travel, you wanted to do an actual commando crawl, you could. It would be that. So again, it's a good little movement to play with if you're outside maybe, or maybe even on the carpet, but you get those carpet burns, so grass is better. Alright, so we've done that commando crawl. So then we can start to push ourselves up. What I like to do is work these hands in a position which is going to be good for me, so squeezing the shoulders back, and then pushing, and I get to rock. You often see babies doing this sort of thing. Before they start crawling, and knee crawls, start doing this. They see something, they want it, and they're going to do this sort of motion. So that's what we're doing. We're just teaching, we're getting the body to talk to itself. So hips and shoulders talking to each other through the trunk. So if we can go all the way down to here, and all the way back, that's great. That's moving the shoulders, the knees, the hips, but also the spine. Again, this shouldn't cause, this is the painkiller accessible, shouldn't cause us pain. This shouldn't, but if it does, as in it's common, but it's not normal. You want to work something out. So maybe you reduce your range, make it pain-free. Maybe you draw circles. Maybe you go diagonal. Maybe you do all kinds of different things. Okay? You could bring your toes together and wave through the whole spine to get some of this going. Flying round, turning, okay? Now then we can start with some knee crawls. Now just to think about a baby, we don't want to collapse through the lumbar spine like that, but what we're trying to do is lift the chest. So if I, without me bleeding like that, cranking on the neck, I'm lifting my chest, we're stabilising the tummy. And that is how a baby crawls generally. Here. If that bothers you, if you haven't got a stiff thoracic spine and you're cranking on your neck to look forward, keep it neutral. Just look between your hands. That's okay. Keeping a long spine. But if you are able to, this is really going to encourage that thoracic spine mobility, lumbar spine stability. And the other thing is, the longer you've got one arm and one leg in the air, the more the opposite end of the shoulder are talking to each other, the more your trunk's working hard. So this is what we're doing. Alright. And we can progress that by digging the toes in and going hand-foot crawl. Now trying to keep those knees very low to the ground. So I'm trying to keep the chest lifted. Again, the longer this is in the air, the more my tummy's going to work, my trunk's going to work to stabilize. Try and lift and plant at the same time. I could crawl for distance, or I could just do a number of steps. I could go laterally, I could go diagonally. Make it work for you. Alright, next one, we're going to start to get a foot onto the ground. Because obviously, babies, after a little bit of crawling, start to stand and want to walk. So what we're going to do, we could make it level one, but we come back to this position, we stay on the back knee, and we step. What we don't want to do though is be on top of each other here. So we do want to maybe slide that knee back, lift the chest, open those hips up, and then we can return, and we can go to the other side. Now if we are able to, we can lift that knee, really lengthen out. If we're able to, we can stay on the toes, step, lift the chest. Step back, step, lift the chest. Step back, You could, as I say, you could set a timer for this. You could do a certain number of repetitions each side. I like to, if I'm doing this as a swift warm-up movement practice, I'm not feeling too stiff, I'm just gauging where I'm at. 4 repetitions each side. If it's a head nod, I might do 8. So the unilateral drills, you know, if you're doing one limb at a time, one leg at a time, one direction at a time, 4 on each side, or 8 in total. Okay. All right, so what we're going to do now is go into a seated position. It's archetypal human posture, the sitting base position. So that's when we're here. This is what causes people a lot of trouble. So we've got one foot in the air. We went from here before, and maybe all of a sudden worked out how to do that. So this foot points forward, this foot is right behind the other one. My hands, my pelvis is square ahead, my hands are 90 degrees to that. I want to push down, lengthening through the crown of the head, pulling that head back, so that I'm trying to get my shoulders 90 degrees, as I said. So I feel like it's like I'm wringing the spine out. No pain in my lower back, I'm rotating through here. But if I do this, it's going to go through my lower back. That's why we must push with both hands, square the shoulders up. Now I load onto those wrists by getting the shoulders over those wrists, directly over the top. Step, sit down, and then I bring back out the other direction. Now once you've got that, you can make it a little bit quicker. Okay, but this is so good. This is again just a great drill for those shoulders, for that rotatory stability of your trunk, but developing that thoracic extension rotation. Alright, now we want to start to stand. So this one hand can lift. If we're really unstable, then we better make sure that we keep 3 limbs in contact with the mat or the ground. So both hands can still push down, but I lift this leg. This does not touch the floor. If I can lift this hand, I do. Then I lift this heel, pivot, place both feet down, and now I'm in a deep squat. And I can stand. I can sit into that deep squat, reach with the opposite hand, or both, rotate. See how this leg now doesn't touch the floor. And I can come back. I say I'm using both hands. Or ultimately, this is where we want to get to, is that we squat, rotate, plant, pivot, come back, like so. And, you know, again, 4 on each side would be great. See, with that control, we don't want to lose control. Alright, and once we're stood, we can start to walk. Just coming back to my mat. Feet, if I'm walking, this is where people go to and start really being unstable. So we've got to use our feet, engage the feet, with them together, tall through the crown of the head, and we can learn to touch like so. So we feel a weight shift, but we're not doing this. So if you pick a spot on the wall, the idea is we want to be focusing, we don't want to be swaying around. I feel the ball of my foot land on the ground, it rolls to the heel's kissing the ground. By the time that heel kisses the ground, this is engaged. Right through to that crown of the head. This knee touches, and it's like so. Now this is where I can get some breathing practice done as well, where I can breathe in, maybe over 3 steps, inhale, 2, 3, exhale, 2, 3. Inhale, 2, 3, exhale, 2, 3. Now, it doesn't mean that I've not been practicing my breathing throughout. I have. But with this, we can get that ladder breathing. After, maybe you do some more cardiovascular training. By the time you walk in here, and it might be, right, I'm going for 3 steps to an inhale. After 30 seconds to a minute, I go to 4. And you go all the way up until maybe you're in 20. It depends. You might be stepping pretty quick then. It's up to you. But remember, inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Make it work for you. If you wanted to sprint, so you know, when we learn to walk before we can run, if we start to sprint, because this is a sprint action, we keep that same range of movement. So we don't suddenly start to do this. We try and keep that same range, but it's here. So we've gone all the way from the floor to do it from baby's tummy time, head nods, all the way up, learning to squat, stand, walk, and then run.